the group called a Saudi blockade of ports and airports in Houthi-controlled northwestern Yemen. Houthi media officials said they were closing the Bab al-Mandab Strait, a critical oil export route being used to bypass Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, for more on this, we can speak with Jennifer Kavanagh. She joins me now. She's the Director of Military Analysis at Defense Priorities, a think tank out of Washington, D.C. Jennifer, first I want to get your reaction to what we heard from Pezeshkian saying that Iran is now back to a full-scale war with the United States.
Well, that's certainly the way it seems to me. The United States has ramped up the intensity of its airstrikes, reimposed its naval blockade, and expanded its target set, going after infrastructure targets, bridges, power plants, and it's really concentrating on the areas of Iran's territory that are closest to the Strait of Hormuz.
And why has the U.S. upped the ante, if you like, or re-engaged with this level of escalation when they were trying to make progress on the diplomatic front?
Well, I think President Trump was very frustrated with the diplomatic process and the progress that was made. I think the two sides, Iran and the United States, had different interpretations of what the key clause about the Strait of Hormuz in that memorandum of understanding said. I think the United States was looking for a return to the pre-war status quo, or at least the ability to maintain that southern route, and Iran was hoping to exert its own control to show that the balance of power in the region had shifted. So right now the war has resumed, and it's about control of the strait. It's not really about the nuclear issues that President Trump was concerned about at the beginning. The problem is that there isn't really a military solution to this for the United States. We've already seen over the past few months that military power, or at least the amount of military power the United States is willing to exert here, is simply not enough to take away the leverage that Iran has gained over the course of the war.
Yeah, and with this resumption, it seems to be spreading. What should we understand about the Houthis in Yemen and their threats over the Bab el-Mandab Strait?
Well, this really complicates oil exports and could put additional pressure on oil prices, which we know is something that President Trump watches very closely. The Saudis had been effective at using the Red Sea as a bypass to get around the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And we had enjoyed a number of months here where the Bab el-Mandab had remained open. That closure complicates maritime commerce generally, and the export of oil especially. And this will rattle oil markets in ways that the closure of only the Strait of Hormuz does not. Now we'll have to wait and see sort of what that means for prices, at how high they go, and what President Trump is willing to tolerate as we head into first the August recess and then the lead up to the U.S. midterm elections.
Yeah, and with that all in mind then, what options or what choices are there available to President Trump?
Well, none of them are good. His escalation options, which are in theory on the table, are very unpalatable and things that he's tried to avoid. He can try to escalate. He could try to go after some of these targets or scenarios that have been postured in the past, going after Karg Island, trying to put ground forces along that coastal territory to try to exert control. I think those would be very high cost. The U.S. doesn't really have the forces in the region to do either of those effectively right now. High U.S. casualties, low guarantee of success. Iran could simply move its attacks on shipping inland, for example. The second option would be to actually strike a deal that reflects the shift in the balance of power, which would give Iran more control than it had before the war. I think the administration is very unwilling, or at least hesitant to do this because of the precedent it would set. Third option is that we remain in this state of limbo, strikes alternating with talks, and this goes on for some period of time. This is highly unstable, very undesirable from an oil market perspective. And the final choice is that President Trump just walks away and lets the international community and the region deal with the aftermath. None of these options are good. From the U.S. perspective, getting out of this war, I think, should be an imperative. From the region's perspective, ending the war is an imperative. So I certainly think that there are a lot of players here who are looking and hoping that escalation isn't the choice that President Trump makes.
Jennifer, we'll leave it there, but thanks very much for your expertise and putting that all in context for us. Jennifer Kavanagh, Director of Military Analysis at Defense Priorities. It's a think tank out of Washington, D.C.